Hey guys, welcome to video number 6, the last and final episode in this DTS series. Ed, what are we going to be doing in this episode?
Well, in this episode we're going to finally be putting the engine back in the car after all of this work. So stay tuned for that, it's going to be exciting.
Yep. Rah rah.
Shut up. Alright, so right now what we're doing is we're putting our power steering pressure hose on. Now there is I screwed this up the first time. This is a 2002 DTS. Now, partway through the year in 2002, I did a bunch of research on this. Partway through the year, they changed this line, the design of this line. There are two different designs. When you go to order these things, one of them will be called first design, the other one will be called second design. I ordered the first design thinking, well, it's a 2002, I don't know, whatever. That was wrong. This line is the second design, this is the correct one. So, that's what we're installing. A waste of whatever, how much money it was, sucks, but anyway. So there's two clips you gotta be aware of. This one you gotta pull off your old hose. You can see it looks pretty crusty. And this is another one you gotta pull off your old other hose. I'll show you where this goes in a second. But we'll put that there. This guy, he just kinda... Alright, before we tighten that up, let's get it all in place. Because we're gonna have to finagle a little bit. I'm gonna just put this clip in here. Kinda center it. This is a 10mm bolt. Unfortunately, what they did here in the chassis, this is a self-tapping screw on the cradle, so... Alright, we'll come back to that in a second. Now, this is the other part of the line. There again, you put a little rubber O-ring on here. You lubricate the O-ring, and then you install it in the pump here. And whatever you do, this has to nicely thread in here. You don't want to use any force because you'll mess it up. So I'm going to play with this a little bit so I can get it to screw in place. Yeah, there we go. All right. So this is just a 16mm. You can use any old line wrench on this. Tighten it up. What we want to do is we want to make sure that this is sitting about here. Because this clip, this guy, this just lets us tighten that up the rest of the way, because there's no way we're getting a frickin' this line wrench in here. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so what we've got here, this is a little steel heat shield. Because obviously your main exhaust from the rear bank is right here, so you want this is entirely designed to protect the steering rack from getting exposed to very high temperatures. These are just 10mm bolts. Don't make them too tight because the housing's aluminum. Okay, look at that. All right, so. Our last step here, what we did was we just, since the old ring terminal broke off of this, and this is what we had, we just soldered on a big old ring terminal onto the end of this ground cable. Here's our temp sensor connector, so that one's going to go on there. We're just going to put this one on here like this. This is a 13mm Next thing is we're going to put in our input and output heater hoses. We have these two. This guy has a little rubber joint that it's a 3-inch piece of hose that basically joins this piece to the water pump housing here. This goes into our quick fitting on the back. We'll get that out in a second. But this guy, we just want to kind of thread him on. So it stops. There we are. This may require slight bits of adjustment. That's why I didn't tighten any clamps. Because, alright, go on there. This can get secured like that. Okay, tighten those hose clamps. You probably can't see it, but you'll be able to feel that there's a little ridge here. You want to position the clamp right before that ridge. Alright, as you can see, there's a little nut that holds this thing on. Let's put that on there, like so. What I said about the quick fitting, this is the little clamper, and that fits into the rubber of this adapter. And I hate these things, but GM seems to love them. Oh, getting it centered. Here, there we go. Okay, that goes in there like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build the little isolator sections for the mounts for the subframe here. You'll see there's 3 components. Right, so this piece, this is the lower isolator. That goes underneath and comes up through the frame here like this. I'll have to hit that with a hammer or something. This piece goes like that. And then this goes down over top of this, like so. Now the trick here is I have to get I have to basically lubricate this a little bit with like some soap. And I need to hit this in fully into place here. But then this goes over that, and it sort of goes in and makes a sandwich. So it isolates the subframe here from the body. So any vibrations and little other from the motor and the road and everything get isolated out. That's in theory. Now, the old ones on here were just completely just crusty. You wouldn't believe. So, I'm interested to see the ride quality difference in the car now versus before with the with the old ones on it. So, we'll see. But we'll get these in place and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so what I usually do with stuff like this when I gotta get a steel thing into a very press fit rubber piece is I just take a little bit of soap. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. And I lubricate the end of this. And I just take it, and there it goes. Slips right in. No problems. And now it's important to note that if you are ordering replacement parts for these, the front isolators are different. So these 2 pieces are different from the rear 4. They have a different part number, they're a slightly different size, so I mean they definitely do it for a reason, so I don't know. Maybe the rear ones would work on the front in a pinch, but who the heck knows. Alright, so the back works much the same way. We have this guy just fits up in here. There we go. Okay, so we're basically at the last step here of putting this lump back into this car. So we're going to start by rolling it roughly in place, and then we'll We'll bolt up our exhaust system, which you can't quite see at the moment, but and then we'll begin lowering the car body back down on top of this thing.
Exhaust attached, people.
Stop. Crazy bubble extension on this. Alright, that sounds good to me.
Okay, so here's our torque converter cover. It goes like this up in the car. Now what you need to do first is get this single bolt way up in there on the housing. And it's super hard to see, but it's all the way up in here over the exhaust crossover right here. So if you're looking at this flange, it's right back in here where the bolt goes. I don't know if you can even see it, but if you can see where that, you can see where the connector is for the O2 sensor. Up there, the white connector with the blue ends. It's right behind that, where the bolt has to go. So this guy goes with these tabs facing this way. And you line it up. And then you try desperately to get this bolt into here. Okay, there we go. I got it threaded. That's in there. It's a bit difficult to tighten. It's probably good enough. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so our next ridiculous bracket is this little guy. And he, if you can see the telltale marks of where the screws were, it goes up under here like this. So this thing hooks into a motor mount stud over here, right? And there's a nut, a really dirty nut, but a nut that goes in here. This guy goes on like that. Alright, and now there's a bolt that holds this in here. Again, holds this brace nicely in place. Alright. That's that one. Alright. So our last bracket is here. We have 4 bolts. Alright, so I'm just working on installing the ABS sensor here. As you can see, it's got quite a length of wire on it, so it's got to run between our suspension sensor. So it comes up between here. This first grommet clips into this. This second grommet clips into here. And this connector goes into the ABS sensor connector right there. Now, the second thing on this side is actually the road sensing suspension connector. Obviously, this is just a gas charged shock. There's no anything in this. All this is a lovely piece from our No here that is simply tricks the computer into thinking that shit's still connected. So I'm gonna go cut this zip tie and then we'll hook that up. This guy goes here. We're gonna loop this through here. And up on this side, there's a little connector way up in here that this plugs into. Alright, so after much fighting with some things, we're ready to put the fuse box back in it. So as you can see, there's 3 connectors here. 1, 2, 3. And the 4th green connector is just a power lead for a bus that goes here. So what we're going to do, we're going to put this green connector in first. Get that to click in. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure all these cables are nice and settled. This has 4 little clips, and when you push it down, they all engage. Or at least they should. If they don't, there's something wrong. Okay, there we go. Now we have to tighten these screws up. This piece, we're going to clip him back in here. This wire sits in here. This right here. Okay. So this is the clip that holds this quick disconnect line in place here. So we have to make sure it's seated in there. And you don't lose it. Good God. I have to make sure it's lined up correctly, I guess, right? So, which it's not. Pretty certain the notch goes in one of these little areas here. But no, I am a dumbass. There it is. See? And then it doesn't come out. This will hold her in there nice and tight. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our heater core hoses on here. I'll try and get these nicely seated on here. Up to the end. Yep, there we go. Okay. And my pliers. These are just our usual GM quick hose crap ass fittings. There it is. Feeds right there, so we're going to put that clamp right about there. That should hold it pretty well. And now we have this guy. We're gonna have to move this clip. It's gonna have to happen here. Okay, let's try. just like a... Okay, so... Now... Hopefully I would remember how this one is here. I think... Like that pin goes like... This? So like that? Yeah, there it is. There we go. Throttle cable's attached. Okay, now we do want to do our trans cable here. I accidentally clipped it all the way in, but there's two little clips that hold this piece in place here, and this is the safety. So this goes through two slots right here. I'll just push it in there, and it locks, and we're good. Okay, now the tricky part is this little guy right here. There's a little plastic insert on this piece that has to get clipped on top of this ball socket right there, if you can see it. That guy has to go on top of this. You have to get it. There it is. Now that that's done, let's do our fuel lines, which are here. So there's on this fuel line harness, you have a feed, a return, and vapor. Right. So the vapor one goes on this guy here. Right. And then here's the EGR valve, and this little solenoid here is for vapors from the tank. Yep, that holds it on there. Hook this. This is like a little plug clip here. I'll just set that in there. Maybe we can push this in. Then you push the plug in. That expands the little rivet. I'll try and connect this return line first and see if it actually will clip. Okay, I got that one. So this just goes in here, holds that as a safety. There it is. So again, we safety it. We'll have to keep an eye on that when we energize the fuel pump, just to make sure nothing leaks. I guess probably one of our last steps here is our body connector. This is again one of these nice little flip connectors. Where you line it up, and you just move the lever, and boom, done. This is our cruise control module. It's held on by 3 bolts, or 1 bolt and 2 nuts, yeah. So, for whatever reason, this thing does a loop-to-loop, and it holds itself onto the throttle cable here with this little guy. So this goes behind the reservoir here, and it's again one of these little crazy mabothers. So this thing here, it goes onto a little stud that sticks out of the throttle assembly here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. There it is. So this guy, we get him in there. It goes, clicks in. All right. Let's let that back. Oh, not quite yet. All right. So we gotta get this there, like so. And then we clip these two together, like that. And that's your cruise control module. Here's your electrical connector for the cruise control module. like that. Here we have our Siemens PCM for the Northstar. It's two big blade connectors, and they give you a hint here. As you can see, this side is the blue connector. So this thing lives in the air box, but for now we're just going to connect this guy up to this. Now hopefully we're not going to have a billion error codes when we start this thing, but I think what we're going to do, I'm going to fill it full of coolant, and then we're going to start it just like this, so we can, you know, very easily peer in here without any of the intake plenum and all this other crap on here, just to make sure that nothing's leaking. Alright, here's our coolant storage tank. I'm going to put that in place. Okay, that's done. We can just stick our final hose on here. Well, not our final hose, but one of our hoses. There we are. Okay, so we're down to basically one of our last parts here for the engine anyway. That's a bunch of plastic that has to go in here, but this is the thermostat. I just got a brand new one. Brand new seal. It just goes up in there. Like that. Make sure it seats nicely. Okay. This is one of these things where if you don't get this right, you're gonna have coolant leaking all over your ABS pump. Because that was a brilliant decision. Let's put the thermostat right in front of this thing. What could go wrong? Okay, so we're about to install our upper radiator hose, but before we do that, we want to put these little GM supplement tabs in there. This is basically a sealant agent that General Motors uses to make sure little leaks don't occur here and there. It's funny enough, these pellets are basically just ginger, turmeric, crushed almond shells, and some polyethylene glycol or whatever, and they just dissolve. You just put them in the upper radiator hose here, and they just dissolve as the coolant flows through it. Guess I'm just gonna have to like, ram it on there. Didn't want to do that, but it's good enough for now, probably. Fill it too full because the level will rise and lower based on it does need a little Alright. I think you know the drill. Back and forth a whole bunch of times. Wow. That was a lot of bubbles. Alright, so fingers crossed. We're getting ready to start her up. What we're going to do first, as you can see, we have our coil packs disconnected. Because it's been a while, we just want to make sure that we crank it a couple of times to build oil pressure before we actually start it. And we'll also listen for any weird noises that it might make. We'll do that, and then we'll reconnect the coil packs. We're also going to check to make sure these guys don't leak, obviously. Once we're ready, then we'll plug our coil packs in and we'll give it a try. See what happens. See if you get the dash.
I hear bells.
Hopefully the computer's okay. Alright, there's no fuel leaking.
Right?
Yeah. Hold on.
Problems?
Did you tighten this ground? No, you did not. I just saw a giant spark. I'm like, uh-oh. Yep, that is not tight. Alright, try it again. Power steering. Too much air. Cavitating. I gotta put more fluid in it. That's why it's doing that. Okay, start it now. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to connect these brake lines here. Oh, we had some sort of ratcheting device for this. Okay, hopefully that holds. Okay. Yeah.
Down?
Yep.
Up.
Alright. Alright, push it down again.
Alright, it's down.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of air coming out. Back up.
Up. Down.
Up.
Up.
How we look on fluid? Okay. Let's do this a couple more times. Alright, down again.
Down.
I think this side's good for now. I don't see any more big, horrendous air bubbles coming out, so.
Release brake pedal.
Okay.
Close right front brake bleed screw. Check the bleeder pressure and fluid.
Okay. Now what?
Left front. Alright, close left front brake bleed screw. Check the bleeder pressure and fluid. Release the brake pedal, already done. Open the left rear brake bleed screw. Okay, so close the right bleeder screw and release brake, open the right rear.
That's the next one.
Close right rear bleed screw.
Okay. Closing.
Let me know when it's closed.
Yep, closed.
Procedure complete.
Alright. Sounds good. Alright, our next step in reassembly here is we're going to put our inner fender shields in. This uses 5 of these little plastic rivet clips. And as you saw when we took it off, this guy slips underneath this. You see the big hole here? He goes up underneath this section there. We want to slot these little plastic things into the bumper assembly like that. I'm just going to put one in here to set this. Alright, so these, in order to secure these in place, all you do is push. So 1, 2, 3. This one is I might have to hit that with a hammer. Alright, so it's the same procedure on this side. The front of the bumper The bottom panel here that we'll put on in a second is really what keeps this from flapping around. So if you're driving the car without that bottom panel on it or not enough clips in it, this whole thing is going to be moving in the breeze. So it's important to secure that piece. All right, moving on. Next step is to put the underbody splash shield in place. This is a big chunk of plastic. And like I said, it's not only a splash shield, but it's a support structure for the lower half of the plastic bumper here. So all of this stuff is real wobbly unless you have all the clips in this. It's really a great design, really. So again, this lip here, all around the outside, that goes up underneath the bumper here. And you can see on this car here, there's a split in the bumper, but these four here are one style of clip. These four, this one here that clips to the body, right there, is they're all sort of one type of clip, and the other ones are a different style of clip. Now, there are two different types of clips that holds this on. You have this style with the push like we did for the inner fender part, and then there are these type hold the support to the lower bumper cover. So these guys, the bigger push clips, they go through here. Now, all along the front part of this are a bunch of holes here, 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 and here. And if this thing was aligned right, they would fit, but it's pretty bad. We're just going to put as many of them in there as we can, but a lot of this is subject to the fact that plastic shrinks and expands over time, and so essentially you just gotta put the clips in where they fit, and they provide you these little access holes here so you can stick your finger up in it. A lot of times you gotta like pull the bumper up and out of the way, especially if this piece hasn't been in place for a long time or was never secured properly. The plastic of the bumper is going to get all screwed up, and or it's been, you know, hit or cracked or whatever. You'll kind of gotta finagle it in here. I'll go there. All right, so some of these are like, especially when they're brand new, they're a bit belligerent. I don't like to go in there and expand, but I just give it a tap with a rubber mallet. I just kind of go in. But as you can see, without these clips and everything in here, this is all wobbly. But now it's, you know, it's not great, but it's fairly well planted. Alright, what we're about to do is we're about to reinstall our oxygen sensor cabling heat shield. And this guy, he fits up here like this, about like that. The cable clips into it on the inside of it, and it shields this oxygen sensor wire from the heat from the catalytic converter. Now, it's held in place by 4 rivets. When we originally took this off, all we did was drill the heads off, so as you can see, they're still sort of just sitting here, and they need to be removed. The original ones are these, you know, anodized purple aluminum. I don't know why the hell they're purple. They must have gotten a deal on them. But anyway, so what we're going to do here is we're going to drill the remaining part of this rivet out. We'll do that on all 4 rivets. and then we'll put the new one in place, and we'll rivet the heat shield back up there. So. As you can see, we have this little black plastic clip here. He needs to be turned like this, and that lines up with a piece on the white clip here. We can just do one of these. Okay, so that's nicely clipped in there. Now, this will sit effectively like that. Alright, so this will suck it in. Should just break it off. Alright, so now we're going to put our air box in place here. As you can see, here's our intake that goes in the wheel here. This is where the computer will sit. Here's the air horn, and then the air filter goes here, and then there's another plastic piece that goes over it with the plenum that goes into the intake manifold there. So you have 3 screws. There's 1, there's 2 in here, and there's 3. The whole trick is to get this thing in here and around all the various obstacles while getting the screws put in place. It's kind of a pain in the ass, I'm not gonna lie. It does require some finagling. These 3 bolts are Torx T30, so you will need Torx bit for that. And again, like I said, it's all a matter of getting this lined up so that this guy goes in the hole. And you may have to play with it a little bit, moving it around here and there. So like, for example, this one might have to go in first in order to pull the air box this way enough so that you can get that one in. That's tight. Now, this is more or less where it needs to be. The big problem is this one down here. Are we lined up? No need to make these too tight. Don't want them to break off in the body if they get rusty. Okay. As you can see, I did have to take the cruise control module back off because just there's not enough room with it on there. So now moving on to the computer. There we go. This fits down in the slot here. Like that. Now make sure your wiring harness is nicely placed. Now, for the second part of the airbox, we have this. You see the channel here for the wiring. There's a big area where the computer sits in here, and this is where the air filter goes. So there's some tabs here that lock into the back of the airbox, and now it's a matter of getting it around all of the different, again, hoses and lines and things, because it's pretty tight in here. Alright, so yeah, there's 3 8mm bolts that hold this in. Okay, it's in there pretty good. Alright, now our air filter goes in like this. Just drops in. Alright, now for the last real mechanical piece of the puzzle here, we got our intake plenum. And this thing slips on here. Like that. Alright. Here's our mass airflow sensor wire. Connect that while we're at it. make sure there's 3 little clips or 3 little tabs that slide into the airbox out here. And this squeezes down. You got 2 little wing nuts to hold this. That will fasten this down. We'll tighten up this clamp on the intake manifold here. You don't want any air leaks. Okay. Now I'm going to put the cruise control module back. Just really a beauty cover for the radiator. Alright, now for the final piece of the puzzle. We will be installing our Northstar beauty cover. Alright, so that concludes our 6-part series on doing everything to fix up this Cadillac DTS behind us here. So yeah, stay tuned for more interesting videos on various other car projects we'll be working on.
Yep. So as always, do what you feel, keep both feet on the wheel. You don't have to go home, but you can definitely watch our next video. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Maybe comment if you want. Up to you.
Tell us what we did wrong.
Yep. We know you will. Alright, that'll... Cut!